I'm nervous. Hi, it's Romania Black, and we're on episode 60 of Ace of the Diamond. It is the last inning of the final qualifier, Seidou versus Inashiro, and this game, I was talking to somebody on Patreon about it, and I think it was Zero, it was you, but the idea that this game has been going on for over 10 plus episodes, like 13 episodes, and it's not gotten boring. It's been fresh, it's been exciting, it's been tense, I don't know any other sports anime that I've watched that has, one, had a match last this long, but two, have a match be this long and not feel repetitive. Like, there's not really any recap or like reused footage. It's all new stuff, and that's kind of insane. So it's a testament to how good this show is, to keep you invested 60 episodes in, wondering what the heck is going to happen. And I'm on the edge of my seat. I've been dreading this since the match started, because a team has to lose. And I don't want it to be Seidou, but I think it's going to be Seidou, because I'm like, we still got 2 more seasons. And if you go to Nationals once, I mean, isn't that the end-all be-all? And it's like, I don't want them to lose, though, because I've come to love our third years, and I want to keep traveling with them and keep going, but I don't know. The episode's called Lonely Sun, and I think Lonely Sun is referring to May, because at the end of the last episode, we got that little flashback of May's character, and he seemed like going into a dark, deep place. And so I was like, oh, so Lonely Sun kind of makes sense for May, because he's by himself. His big motif is he's always been by himself. It's like him against the world, and he's trying to gather, it reminds me a little bit of the character Yui in Demon Slayer, the spider demon that tries to gather the family so that it can pretend to be a family. It sort of reminds me of that, except May's trying to gather the perfect team so that he's not alone. But he is still alone. Even when he's like mad and frustrated, he's by himself. Before the game, he's by himself. He kind of isolates himself. So it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy, I guess, that he does that to himself. But I don't know. I have a feeling May's going to come back with a vengeance. It's not going to be good. I don't like where this is going. Sawamura's had a great game. He's pitched so well. I'm like, don't put in Kawakami. Sawamura's doing great. So I just don't know. They're ahead by 1. I'm so nervous, y'all. I'm so nervous. I've never been this nervous for the outcome of a game, because usually I can kind of predict where it's going to go. It's like you think one team's going to win, and I want Seidou to win so badly, but I just don't know if they're going to do it. And y'all told me to watch 4 episodes this time around, so I'm like, well, that means that it's probably going to conclude by the 4th episode. So we're watching 60, 61, 62, and 63 today. And so the rest of the season are going to be 3 episode increments. So this will be the last 4 episode jaunt before we dive into season 2. And season 2 is probably, I said at the beginning of the series I would do 2 episodes for the 2nd and 3rd season, but I really like the 3 episode structure of this, so we may keep with that for the 2nd and 3rd season. I really like the 3 episode structure. And the 4th episode, it's always kind of tiring because you've gone through 4 straight episodes, and I have a feeling this is going to be an emotional roller coaster, but I'm assuming if we're going to end the game, I want the last episode to end the game, so So, yeah, I've stalled. Let's dive in, shall we? I'm so nervous, y'all. I've dreaded this. I've waited all day. I've procrastinated. All day I've been like, oh, I'm going to watch Ace of the Diamond. I procrastinated, and now I'm going to internally scream the entire time. So, this shirt seemed appropriate. So, let's do this, shall we? We're going to start episode 60 of Ace of the Diamond here in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and let's go. That physically hurt. That physically hurt. I was doing good. It was sad. It was devastating. I was doing good not to cry. And then them damn girl managers came out with that big rainbow phoenix of go to nationals and gave it to Inashiro. And then Yuki shook Harada's hand. And it was over. God. That loss felt like a ton of bricks. Because everything was going so well. But it's the pressure, man. It's the pressure. I started getting an uneasy feeling in episode 60 when we got a lot on May. I feel like May had his redemption in these episodes because May's been plagued the entire time about that mess up from Nationals last year, and it wasn't him as a kid in isolation. It was him from messing up at Nationals. He took 10 days off to get back in sync and figure everything out. But May saying in episode 60, he's like, until I move forward, I'll keep thinking about that move. I can't have my summer until I get past that. And him telling, like, the whole thing where he said, May had a lot of good one-liners in this. He's still a little shit, and I hated him at the end of the match. We'll talk about that. But him saying that the mound was hotter at Nationals. He's like, it comes down to, like, experience and the mindset behind everything. And honestly, going into these episodes, Inashiro had everybody kept saying that Seidou had the upper hand because they had the one-run lead, but Inashiro had the upper hand because they didn't have the pressure. That's the thing. Seidou had the one chance to score, and then Inashiro had two chances. So by the bottom of the ninth, it was like, it's Inashiro's game. If they score, it's great, you know? And Seidou doesn't have any other chances. So I always felt like in these episodes that Inashiro had the chance to get the momentum back. It was their game to lose, which sucks. And in the end, it's a really highly experienced team, and their best players are all second years, with the exception of like Harada. They're second years, so they're still going to come back next year. And our team, I think Miyuki at the end, Miyuki brings up a good point where he's like, we had amazing. Here's my thing about, we'll talk about more when we get to the end here, but I want to go ahead and bring it up while I'm thinking about it. Miyuki telling Kuramochi that he's like, if we don't do something, then our chances of going to Nationals next year are a pipe dream. He's like, May's still going to be around. So is Carlos. So is Shirakawa. They're still going to be there. So, and they're going to be a year older, so it's going to be even worse. So, I get Miyuki's sentiment and his fear, because the problem isn't that we don't have we have great first years. Haruichi, Sawamura, and Furuya are amazing players, and we have good second year players. Kuramochi, Miyuki, Kawakami, they're good players. The problem is that they were relying a lot on their third years in this game to pull the weight. Like, there was a lot relied upon with Yuki, with Tamba, with Rio, with June. There was a lot of reliance on those third years. And it's not to say that the second and first years aren't as good or don't have as much potential. They can get there. But the thing with Inashiro is Inashiro didn't have to rely on their third years. They had their underclassmen the second years that they could focus on. So next year it's going to be even worse. And Miyuki's like, if we're not reliable as third years, and our underclassmen aren't reliable, then we don't have a prayer of getting the Nationals. Now that Tamba and Yuki and Jun and all them are gone, it's like, ugh. He brings up a good point. But yeah, as soon as he was talking about having already faced his weaknesses, he's like, I've already reached my lowest point. His lowest point was Nationals in his first year. He's like, I've already faced that lowest point. That was the hottest the mound's ever been, and nothing's compared to that. So for May, the pressure's off, because he's like, nothing's going to compare to that. So why should I be afraid? And he's like, I can't picture us losing. It was all about the mentality too in this game. I don't think Inashiro ever feared losing. Seidou did several times, and especially at the end there, they were constantly afraid. Katioka had to pick him back up, and Tamba and them had to pick him back up. But Inashiro never seemed to have that doubt, and that was May's job as the ace. The idea of the indisputable ace, I agree with the reporters in that Seidou doesn't really have that. They have an ace. Tamba is a good ace. Furuya and Sawamura and Kawakami are good pitchers, but they're not indisputable and unwavering like May is. Like, May's a little shit, and he's arrogant, and he's cocky, and he's off-putting at times, but when it comes down to it, to keep his team spirit alive, he's there. And the comparisons between him and Sawamura, it didn't hit me until this set of episodes how similar they are. How similar Sawamura and May are. And Sawamura watching May a lot, and especially towards the end of this set of episodes, I'm hoping that he takes from May that unwavering spirit. Because that's what Sawamura needs. There's so many comparisons. The smile that May gets, like May's genuine, cheeky, cocky smile, that's Sawamura's sunshine smile. May getting frustrated, that's Sawamura. Like, they're so similar. And even when they cheer up their teammates, like, May cheering up Harada and making him less stressed in that final moment. That was such a Sawamura move. I'm like, you guys are so similar and you don't even realize it. But yeah, as soon as he started talking about that in episode 60, I had in the back of my mind, I was like, oh, so is Sawamura... I kept thinking Sawamura was going to get like a Raichi moment where Shirakawa or somebody was going to get a big home run and tie the game, and that was going to be his May moment. I did not think he was going to hit somebody in the head, and we'll talk about that. But there were so many good one-liners in episode 60. The mound was hotter at Nationals. May saying that he's already faced his weaknesses as a first year, so he can move forward. And I would argue that means that Sawamura's faced his weaknesses as a first year, so he should be able to do the same to move forward as well. But I love that line from Shirakawa, the prodigies have frail hearts. That they put so much pressure on themselves that they have frail hearts. And May being a prodigy pitcher, I think that's really interesting. And then they make the argument of why his team doesn't help cheer him up. And at first I was like, yeah, Carlos struck around half naked throughout this entire match. Why aren't they helping May? But May's the type of loner, he doesn't want you to help him. He needs to sort it out for himself. And then he's like a little baby deer. He needs to slowly inch his way back into civilization. Kind of like Miyuki in a sense. Miyuki seems like he's a very loner character too. Which is interesting that there's a connection between Sawamura, Miyuki, and May, and that's our love triangle, right? Very interesting. But yeah, at the end of the day, we talked at the beginning of the series. It's a lot of things tied full circle back around with this, as it should. It's getting close to the end of the season. But the idea that you have to be an egoist to be a pitcher, and the idea that May is an egoist, and he pitched all 9 innings. He was the indisputable ace. And Kataoka told him to play with pride and confidence, but at the end of the day, the ace matters. And May, at least when Sawamura's a third year, May won't be around. Right? I loved in episode 61, though. Here's the difference. Like, I love what Kunitomo did with his players at the very beginning of the game. He was like, he had them all, like, in that last inning, close their eyes, and he said, do you have a clear vision of victory? Can you imagine winning? Okay, now do it. Like that calm confidence comes from his experience as a coach. And that's what Kataoka was lacking. I think that there is so many things against Seidou in this match, but Kunitomo, the benefit of Inashiro is Kunitomo's experience. Like, that was amazing. And that whole strategy, he's like, we don't have to win this inning. We just have to tie. We'll beat them if we go into overtime. And for a split second, I thought we were going into overtime, but May, the destroyer of dreams. Damn. I can't believe it came down to May. And that was May's redemption. And we'll talk about that when we get to it. But yeah, Sawamura's focus, and I love that. And also, speaking of May, like, May got his redemption in this episode. No matter how they do it Nationals from this point, this was May's redemption of his character and what he'd been struggling with the whole game and has been struggling with Nationals and everything. Because the moment he said, we just have to tie it and go an extra inning, that was Kunitomo placing his trust in May. He's like, if we can tie it, May's going to close it out. And that goes back to the flashback where May was like, he's like, it's not the fact that we lost, but it's the fact that they thought that my fellow players didn't trust me enough that we'd win. Because they were like, oh, it's not your fault, you're just a first year. He's like, what does that mean? It means you don't think that I was going to do good because I was a first year? Like, May's frustration was that they didn't trust him as the upcoming ace and as a pitcher. And Kunitomo saying that in episode 61 is just establishing that he has trust in him. And that, like, fired May up. But, man, Haruichi, the eyes on that catch, there's so many good plays. Like the eyes on that catch, and Rio and Haruichi being on the same wavelengths as brothers. I loved that. I thought that was so good. Carlos in this game, when he's not strutting around half naked on the screen, he is such an intimidating presence, and they animate his running like he's so fast. It's crazy. But we had 2 outs. We had one more to go. And it was just like what happened with Raichi. The pressure got to Sawamura. And you can't blame him. He's a first year. This is his first time. And up until now, Sawamura has not realized the weight of going to Nationals. Like, it hadn't hit him. And May, I like that Shirakawa at the end says, oh, you're not just an idiot that isn't afraid. He's like, good to know you're not just an idiot who doesn't know fear. because it's good that it happens to Satomura now that he realized it, but at the same time, it was the same thing that happened to Raichi at the end of their game. Raichi realized in that moment the pressure, and it got to him. And up until now, Satomura was just pitching and having a good time. And the moment that everybody started chanting one more pitch and it started to hit him, the pressure of going to nationals, that's when it all went downhill. And I'm glad in episode 63 that Miyuki recognized it. He's watching the playback tape, and you can make the joke. You can make the joke that Miyuki's watching his boyfriend. You can make the joke for that. But in all seriousness, Miyuki seeing that Satomura was clearly under pressure, and he didn't talk to him. It didn't hit me until Miyuki pointed it out, but I was like, yeah, you didn't talk to him in that moment. He kept going. And I think Miyuki was stressed and pressured, and everybody else was under pressure, and it just didn't hit his mind. But I think Miyuki's going to be the next captain. I mean, it ain't going to be Kawakami. I don't think it'll be Kuramochi. But Miyuki has the drive, the Chris Senpai drive, and the talent. Like, he could be like a Harada. He could be like a Harada, the catcher that's the captain, right? Because Miyuki was already thinking of the next game plan. He's like, we're not good enough. We need to get better. But Miyuki's big problem that we've established this season is his communication skills. And I think Miyuki was starting to realize that. He's like, crap, I should have talked to him. Why didn't I do that? And so I hope that if Miyuki does become captain, that's something that he has to work on. Because Yuki was the perfect captain. He was like encouraging and a strong player and a presence that you just felt confident around. And Miyuki is a strong presence, but there's that lack of communication that Miyuki needs to work on to really cement himself. And I don't know. I felt so bad for Satomura. The moment they get them bags into their eyes, I'm like, stop! No! Stop it! And then, yeah, I love that they tried to make it lighthearted. They tried to rub Tomba's head, and then Masuda was like, oh, rub my head too. Oh my gosh. But man, Harada, I love that moment between Harada and Mei, though, when he's like, I need to put faith in my partner. Like, he's like, Mei pitched through that inning despite his mistakes. I wouldn't be a captain, a good partner if I didn't do the same. And fighting the pressure. But, oh my gosh, the Mei thing to Masa being like, don't worry. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like trying to read my notes, and it's like, he's like, don't take all the glory. Like in that moment, Mei speaking to Harada and like making him loosen up. And it's that communication. See, that was the communication that Miyuki was missing, because Harada and Mei, they're such a good battery, because Mei gets to be a live wire sometimes, and Harada grounds him and keeps the levity, but also they communicate with one another. Like, they're constantly bantering back and forth, even outside of the field. Like, whenever we've seen Harada and Mei together, they've been bantering, and even when they argue and stuff, it's kind of like what Miyuki and Satomura need to do. They need to banter like Harada and Mei. Like, they need to do the exact same thing, and they just haven't got to it yet. But it's just... And Carlos getting home and him jumping. I like that Carlos jumps up whenever he scores. All the little mistakes added up really quickly. Because up until that last run, there really hadn't been too many mistakes that either team had made, other than it was like the pitching mistakes. But up until then, you had Kawakami with the pitching that was a mistake. You had Haruichi not throwing it perfectly to Kuramochi. And you had Miyuki nearly missing that one pitch back and getting Carlos home and not getting him out in time. Like, all those added up. And when they started to lose spirit, man, that's a drainer. It was like the whole game was draining. And Kataoka tried to get him back up, in spirit, but it was too late at that point. And then I liked that they, just like Shirakawa, they had that big, bombastic, motivational, we're going to do it, and then hard cut to Mei hitting it. And that was the end. It almost threw me off, because it just happens. You're just sitting there watching and listening to it, and then it's just like, joop, no record scratch, nothing. It was just hard cut, got the hit, we're done. Oh. But Mei, destroyer of dreams this season. Indeed. I'm terrified for them to face Inashiro next year if they get there. I'm terrified. Terrified! because you're still gonna have Carlos, Shirakawa, and May, and oh my god, Sawamura hitting Shirakawa. I was almost mad at Shirakawa when he smiled. Oh, that pissed me off, because I was like, because Shirakawa knew what it meant. He knew he was going to get taken out and Carlos was going to get to base. He knew it. That shitting grin, I hated that. I was like, Shirakawa, you just like went down in my ranks so hard. Like, that was so cruel. And the worst part is, we just got done seeing what a head injury to Tamba did. And so Sawamura, of course, that's going to be his May. Sawamura is going to have to redeem himself from that pitch. He's going to have the May redemption arc where he gets past it. Then it's going to take time and work. And I have a feeling that's what the rest of the season and part of season 2 is going to be, is getting Sawamura to where he's confident, where he doesn't think. Because his last pitch of the season, the last pitch he had was hitting a guy in the face. Not good. Not a good way to round out your qualifying pitching. And he'd been doing so well. It's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. But yeah, May closed it. He got his redemption. I put on my notes, he's still a little shit. I hated that when they were interviewing. He's like, I never thought we'd lose. I was like, you were in the dugout yelling and screaming because you gave up those runs. But then I was doing fine. I was handling it. I was like, okay, they lost. It's fine. I was afraid of this, but it's okay. And then the moment those girls gave that big mess of paper cranes to them, I was like, oh my god, that gesture. And then I liked that Harada shook Yuki's hand and Yuki congratulated him because he's the best captain possible. And Harada's like, would I have been able to do that to an opponent? Would I have? And then he's like, well, we got to do good now because we almost lost, so we got to do good now. I also noticed that May was not around when they got the paper cranes. He was in the locker room getting interviewed along with the coach. I really wish he'd been outside to get the paper cranes, because then that would have been a nice little humbling moment for him, but no. No. And then it comes down to the indisputable ace. Like, May only had 2 walks in 9 innings, and Seidou had 8. And the walks, that it's an error. It makes a difference. And then it all comes down to the experience and the indisputable ace. So it's like, we'll talk about that here in a second, but now that Tamba's gone, Kawakami is not going to be the ace. He's a closer. No way. Nah. Especially not after this game. No. It's going to be Furuya or Sawamura. I want it to be Sawamura. I want it to be Sawamura so badly. But Furuya being on fire at the end here and having the right mindset, we'll talk about that. But Furuya could be the ace. Furuya could be the ace second year, and Sawamura could take it over in the third year. I don't know, but we'll talk about Furuya and Sawamura. But it was so sad. And like the next day, because in other sports anime I've watched, yeah, after the game they cry and you feel sad, but then the next day they're like already moving on. These boys, they gave so much in that game, and it's like all the third years, their whole 3 years are over. And you get why some of them are crying, because like Ray said to Kateoka, some of them don't know what they're doing now. Like, the year's over and they don't know what they're doing anymore. It's like some of them are going to try out for professional baseball, but others, and college baseball, but others don't know what they're doing. So that's terrifying. Like, you've spent 3 years of your life dedicated to this sport, and now you've got to figure out what to do. I just want to ship Ray and Kateoka so bad. I'm like, just get married already. But I like the idea that Ray wants to counsel the ones that don't know what they're doing, and Kateoka wants to be there. He wants to be there and help. I'm like, yes, be there. I want to see the counseling meetings with the third years. I hope they show us at least 1 or 2 of those, because I want to see them. But I can't believe Masuda's already leaving the dorm. Like, that's so awful. Like, it's so sad. I was like, you can't leave yet. And he is. That part was really sad too. Like, he's just getting up and going. Oh. I'm not ready for the third years to leave, especially not Chris. Like, when Chris told Sawamura to line up, my heart, because I'm not ready for Chris Senpai to go. I'm not ready for that. I'm not ready for Tamba and Yuki to leave, or Jun, or Rio. I feel like I just started this series. I know I'm like 63 episodes in, but I feel like I just started. I'm not ready for them to leave. Not at all. So yeah, there's a lot of parallels to May with Sawamura, of Sawamura just kind of like in isolation, not knowing what to do. And we cut back to Miyuki. Like I said, I think Miyuki's going to become captain because he's the one trying to like pick up the pieces and move forward as quickly as possible. Because yeah, they got scrimmage next week. But yeah. And I'm assuming the scrimmage will be without the third year, so that's going to be terrifying, seeing what that team's like now that the third years are gone. It's not. I'm feeling it's not going to be a good scrimmage match. I'm feeling it's going to be a disaster, and it's going to be like Miyuki being like, "Okay, we've seen what's wrong. Now we got to fix it." But I tell you what, Furuya, man, Furuya's drive. Mad respect to Furuya at the end of this episode, because Furuya and Sawamura are so different people, and they have such different ways of dealing with things. And Furuya, I love that Furuya was running in the heat all day, like building that stamina up. And he's like, Sawamura, he's like, I gotta do this. He's like, the worst feeling was us being in the dugout and not being out there able to help the team. He's like, that was the worst feeling. And he's like, so I'm sorry. He's like, somebody's gotta become the ace, and it's gonna be me. I'm like, oh. So I feel bad because I want both of them to be the ace. I have a feeling that maybe Furuya will be the ace this year. I don't know, because he's got the drive. I just don't know. But I love the idea. I'm like, Furuya, pick Sawamura up. Make that rivalry. Just do it. Just... so sad. I'm like the reporter. I don't have many words. It's just... I was afraid. I was like, oh, they're going to lose. And that was rough. That was rough, Spill. Pain train. Choo choo. Well, I feel like we faced the worst. We've lost, and so that was the worst thing that could have happened. Can't possibly get any worse, right? So now we build back from square one. And this season's 75 episodes, and the next two seasons are like 50 episodes each. So I'm wondering if the second season is going to cover their second year and the third season is going to cover their third year. I don't know. But damn. Although they say the manga is still ongoing, so that's maybe not likely. Maybe the second and third seasons will just cover their second year. I don't know. But these episodes were really good. But I'm not gonna lie, I feel pretty sad. So, I'm gonna go watch something happy. Maybe watch some Soul Eater or something that I'm working on. Watch something happy and have some popcorn and just chill out, because this was really sad. I'm curious to know your thoughts down below, what you all thought of these episodes. I feel good that I'm glad May got over his slump. He got his redemption. I'm glad Inashiro's going to nationals. I hope they win. Hope they win nationals. I hope we get to see the outcome. Usually they tell you the outcome of what happens. I guess it doesn't matter at this point, but I hope we find out how Inashiro did at nationals. But man, what a game. What a game. Like, how many episodes was that? When did we start? Let me pull that up real quick. When did we start this set of episodes on this game? We were on... Damn. It was episode 51. And this was 63. So it's like 12 episodes for one game. Oh. Huh. Okay. So, damn. An amazing game. That's possibly one of the best sports anime games I've ever seen. I haven't seen a lot, but it's probably one of the best sports anime games I've seen. And the fact that it was in season 1. It has me pretty excited for what's to come. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. In the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back next week with more episodes of Ace of the Diamond. Bye.